Okay, this section is going to be a little bit interesting because we're only going to talk about it. We're actually not going to do any homework problems or test over it. Now you are going to be using this later on. I didn't like the things that they had on my math lab, so we're just going to talk about it, and then hopefully you guys will be familiar enough with it that you can use it when we start working with fractions and things like that. Okay, so the first few, what's going on here is we're figuring out ways that we can look at a number and very quickly determine whether it can be divided by a certain number. And so there's a few little tricks, and some of these and some of them um, that you probably maybe have never heard of before, but they're very helpful, and there are actually a lot more, but some of them are so um, kind of time consuming that it's really better just to go ahead and do the division instead of jumping through all the hoops. So we're just going to cover the ones that are the most convenient and the easiest to use and the ones that you actually will use. So the first one, actually the first three, you're all very aware of already, I know. And this one says the first one is the divisibility test for 2. So it says a whole number is divisible by 2 if and only if its units digit is divisible by 2. So what do they mean by its units digit? So let's say if we had a number like, say, oops, if I can get my pen to work here, 4, 5, 7, 6. Okay, my pen is not working very well for some reason today. Um, our units digit, remember, is that very last or rightmost digit. So if this number here is divisible by 2, then that means that the whole thing is divisible by 2. Or another way of saying it is if the units digit is even. So if this is an even number, then it's automatically divisible by 2. Then we have divisibility tests for 5, and then we also have divisibility tests for 10. So you're probably very aware of these also. So in order for something to be divisible by 5, it says its units digit is divisible by 5. That is, if and only if the units digit is 0 or 5. This is the key here. So we're talking about numbers like maybe 75 or 60. Oh my. Or what about this number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 8, 0, 0, 0. That's a big number. But we can tell automatically that it's divisible by 5 just by looking at that last digit, and we know automatically it has to be divisible by 5. Okay, then we also have divisibility tests for 10, which you probably have seen and know well. In order for a number to be divisible by 10, you're looking for that units digit to be 0. So anything that ends in a 0 is divisible by 10. So we would be talking about things like 100 or even maybe 750. Anything like that would be divisible by 10. Now, one you may not be very familiar with is a divisibility test for 4. And we can look at a number and see very quickly and easily whether it's divisible by 4 just by looking at the last 2 digits of the number. If the last 2 digits of the number are divisible by 4, then the entire thing is divisible by 4. So let's say I had a number like 1328. I can tell right away that that is divisible by 4 because 28 is divisible by 4. Okay, we have a few more. We have a divisibility test for 3, and this one is actually kind of cool and interesting. It says a whole number is divisible by 3 if and only if the sum of its digits is divisible by 3. So for that, we'd be looking at adding up all of the digits. So let's say that we had a number like 171, and I wanted to know, can that be divided by 3? Well, what we would need to do is we would need to add up 1 plus 7 plus 1, and that would equal 9. And 9 is divisible by 3. So, yes, 171 can be divided by 3 evenly. Now, our divisibility test for 6 is another interesting one. It says a whole number is divisible by 6 if and only if the whole number is divisible by both 2 and 3. So let's just make up a number here, like say maybe 4368. And we want to know, is that divisible by 6? Well, you could just type it in your calculator and say, is it divisible by 6? But, you just looking at it, though, sometimes it's very helpful to know these things, so that you're doing common denominators and least common multiples and all kinds of things like that. So the first thing we would need to do is see, is it divisible by 2? And our answer would be yes, because that last digit is an even number, so we know automatically it's divisible by 2. And now then, to figure out if it's divisible by 3, we could say, well, what is 4 plus 3 plus 6 plus 8? And if I add all of those up, I get, what, 21? And is 21 divisible by 3? Yes, it is. So since it's divisible by 2 and divisible by 3, this whole number here is divisible by 6. And then finally, our very last divisibility test that we're going to talk about is for 9s. And this one says a whole number is divisible by 9 if and only if the sum of the digits of the whole number is divisible by 9. So this is kind of like the 3's were. So let me throw out a number here. Let's just try a really big number. 3, 148, 308. That's a big number. And if I wanted to know if it was divisible by 9, I would go through and add up all of these digits. So say 3 plus 1 plus 4 plus 8 plus 3 plus 0 plus 8, and all of that added together, we should get 27, and that is, oops, not by 3, by 9. That is divisible by 9. So that means that this whole number, 9 divides in evenly into it.